Welcome back, artisans, to part 3, and where we're going to finish our Kiwandi piece today. So I have a picture here showing you of what we did in part 2. So what we're going to do is about a fingernail width from the very edge of this piece. We're going to sew straight around. And then we're going to lay down the second row, and then we're going to sew that down, and that's how we will continue. So now some people lay out all the pieces, pinning them or baste. You can baste them if you want. I'm going to go row by row on this one, so I will bring you along with me, and so get your scraps ready and we will begin. Okay, everyone, so I'm going to start sewing here, and I'm going to put the camera down so you can see. Now, hopefully you can see this and being worked on. And so typically the way the Siddi, S-I-D-D-I, if I'm saying that correctly, the way they do it is they lay their next row down and then start sewing along those edges. However, I'm doing it this way because for me, I want to make sure that my batting is being caught and sewn in really well. So I'm going to space a little bit, and it will be just enough to catch the batting and make sure that it's sewn in really, really well with this piece. So that's why I am doing this. I'm going to do these running stitches going around. So and now there are many YouTube documentaries, blogs, and whatnot on the Siddi women in India working, and they work from creating their Kiwandi quilts. They work from piles and piles of clothing. And I will tell you, if you are worried about your batting, like this has a few wrinkles in it, you can certainly straighten it out, iron it, and whatnot. But conceptually, the Kiwandi, they work from scraps. So, and it comes out beautifully. It's a very humble, beautiful sewing craft. So I typically just, many of you know my style. I like to feel that I am creating and not, overwhelming my creative process with too many technicalities. Really, I want to be able to just start sewing, and if it's like a wrinkle, this and that, this is going to all push to the center as it is. So and in the schema of things, this is not a huge issue, right? So now as you're going along, some of these shift, the fabric may shift. So just like this one, I'm just pulling it. I want it to be a little bit more overlapped. I just want to make sure it's overlapped. And as it is, you know what, when we get to the next row, right, this much of it is going to be right there covered. So it gives it a nice reinforcement of security, you might say. So I'm just going to sew along this. I just have a habit of stopping like that and straightening things out. You may not do that, and you don't have to do that. And a lot of people don't do that. I just do it because it's a habit. I just like to stop and look at what it looks like after a few stitches. I don't know. And just to make sure, I guess, everything looks good. I love that. I just love the way the colors pop. So I'm going to go along like this all the way around, and I will see you for the next part two. In this video, we will lay the next row. Hey everyone, so I finished sewing the second row of stitches that I really wanted to make sure that my batting that is tucked in is secure. So typically that is taken care of when you do your second row and your stitching. You'll see me go back, sometimes I will add rows. So now what we're going to do is lay out all the way around. I'll just, for the sake of the video and demonstration, I will just lay them out, and then I'll come back around and pin them, and then we'll sew on that row. But let's do a layout and design. So I'm going to put the camera down. Now, for those of you who are not used to working with raw edges, this will be taking you out of your comfort zone a bit. So for sure, because you're working with raw edges here. And now there is also the concept that as you're working with these, you want them to what they call match up. So when you're doing your running stitch straight around, it is actually all inclusive in adhering or sewing your pieces. For example, this piece right here is a little bit, you can see that's not a really good match. So when I come around here, I'm going to make sure that my spaces are full too with fabric. So we shall get started, and I'm going to lay that. Now, the other thing is, as you're going along, let's say I want to tuck these under, this one under. I certainly can do that. It can be under or over. And so you can test it out and see if you like it like that. I'm not so sure I like it like that. I think I want to tuck it a little bit under there. And actually put that piece up there. There. Now that I do like. Okay, and this one. Now the next piece that I'm going to be doing actually is like this. It will be like this rectangle, because what I want is all the pieces to be like this on my next design. So I'm being mindful that I'm overlapping enough to make sure everything does get included when I'm going around. So, and of course you don't have to be as like, I mean, laying these out in a mindful manner, I think is wonderful. I think that's part of the fun, but you do not have to. You can lay these out in a manner that is really relaxing to you. You don't need to necessarily overthink any part of this design. So, and as I say that, I'm kind of matching those. I could leave that as it is if I want, or I can find something where I think it's going to pop a little bit more, and that's how I roll, right? I love it to pop a little bit. So I'm going to do that. And I'm tucking that under because I love, love, love that orange. And I really do want that to show. That is the second row. And now what I do, this is how I do it. I turn it. So now as I'm working, going around my corner, I continue working this way. That helps me a lot to keep track of my rows. It helps me to figure out right where I'm at. So this one I'm going to put there. And see, I have this big space here. And so I am going to make sure that that is covered. I want to make sure that that's covered. Okay. And I might even tuck that under here because I like that. I like that look a lot. And you see your crease here following. It just is. What the Siddi women do is they push it towards the middle as they're going, as they're working. I have never found that to be a big issue in any of my work. It just is. You get used to it. You get used to it. This is a really big piece, and I think I'm going to leave it just like that. But I don't want to cover up my sun, so I might tuck it like that. There. Now I'm turning it around this way, so I continue to work my pieces. So for me, I'm looking right at it. It keeps me going in my circle really nicely. I like that. Look how those colors just pop. They're just beautiful. Actually, I'd like that to be there. And we are almost done. We have one more row to go. And when it starts to move quickly is because as you're sewing around each of these, right? You're sewing around them. What begins to happen clearly is it closes in. Okay, so now I'm turning this way to do my last row. I'm going to clear my pieces because they're covering up my last row. Put these over here. Now if you push anything of your batting any direction, you push it towards the center. That's what you want to do. Okay, so we only have from here to here for the second row. And let's see. I just love my fabric right in front of me. like this because certain pieces really catch my eye. There's a lot of this orange, but the orange is just so, it really, really is beautiful. We actually seem to have a lot of that. Now this piece is a little bigger and I really want to use it. So I am going to trim that. This I'm going to actually leave out in the front like that because that's very pretty also. There. And we are on our last piece for the second row. This is our last piece, and I'm just getting some fraying off there. Yeah, it's really nice. And we will, that's our second row. Now let's just take a look at what that looks like without all of this here. So you can see what that is beginning to look like. So here's your second row. This one I overlapped. For the sake of design, I'm going to put that like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is start sewing these in place. Then I'm going to come back and do the third row with you. Okay, so we did get the knot out, and we will continue. I'll put the camera down a little bit. There we go. If these pieces, if the thread is too long, it will knot easier than other threads. Now, sashiko thread is supposed to be the type of thread that just really doesn't knot. And this is weight 8, and it's a crochet lace type of thread. So about an arm's length of this works really well. Now, so you know, we're going right through to the back here. And if you're going to put a backing, you don't want to put your knots in here, tie your knots underneath the folds of your fabric, or knot it and then gently pull it through the fabric so the knot doesn't show. There's a few different ways to do that. However, if you want to put a backing on that, you can just put like back to back, so you fold. And I'll show you a couple of ways that we're going to put a backing. We'll choose one method, but I'll show you a couple of different ways that you can do that. Because, you know, a size like this can be a table mat. It could be a wall hanging piece of art. It's definitely art wear, in my opinion. This is not a piece in my opinion, to be considered as, it's functional and practical, but it's not a heavy-duty machine stitched product, let's say. So I am following my second row. So you're saying, well, how do you know when to turn? Well, I turn when my row turns, and I'll show you that. We're almost to the end of this, and we'll get you to the end of this, and we'll turn, and then after we do that, we will work on row 3. Now right here, this piece is the second row on the turn. So we're going to sew a straight line till we get to, not all the way to the edge, but close to it, close to the edge. Now I'm going to turn my piece so it doesn't hinder my stitching. And this is why pins are good, keeps everything in place. Okay, now when I come across here, this is what they're talking about matching. You want all those pieces to be inclusive in your stitching. Well, what if they're not? Well, that's not the end of the world. That's okay. That's where you can come around and add a whole nother row, and that's okay. So this is just going to, this is just going to be a very nice, I'm going to show you how this comes right below where these are starting. Each of these pieces are starting. So now, could I have been more mindful in laying out my pieces so that these were matching better? I could have, but if you're working with, let's say, not patching, I don't want to use that word actually, but if you're working with covering up, let's say, those empty spaces, sometimes your fabrics may not match perfectly. So in my opinion, that's okay. Because you always have the choice to go back around. So we continue like this till we get to the corner again. And when we get to the corner, we turn just like we did on this piece. And as long as you're following your pieces like that, because you laid them out in a square, you're laying them out, going around. So then too will your stitches follow that. You're following your fabrics. And we're almost to the end here. And we'll go to the end here, and then I'll show you how we turn again. And I'm sure most of you already have this concept. And, but there are always those little questions in the tiny little details that seem to come up that sometimes we can't find those answers until we've done a lot of the work to find the answers on our own, unless you take a class. And even then, you may not get all those details answered. So you see, I'm staying, I just want to hold this up. I'm staying on the edge of my fabric. I am sewing it straight around. Now, right here, you can see my fabric drops a little bit there. It's not all the way up here, it's here. Now, I could move it up a tiny bit. However, it's still down there. Do I drop my stitch? No, don't drop your stitch. Keep going in your straight line, because what's going to happen, whoops, I want to make sure though that this is at least staying in that second row and it's not flopping too far up and down there. So what's going to happen is as you add these rows, they are going to catch your fabrics. It's going to include all your fabrics. So this one I took the pin out. Shouldn't have done that. But anyway, now I turned my whole piece around and I am going this direction. Here's all my pieces pretty much matching. You have a little diversion here and there. But this way, when I'm going straight across, for the most part, these stitches are going to include and catch each piece. So I'm going to continue like that, and I'm going to finish this and come back, and then we're going to lay out our third row, our next row. Everyone, so row 2 is sewn in, and I left the needle on the thread because I do have some thread left here to begin sewing row 3. Now we'll lay out row 3. Now if on row 2, when you were stitching around and a piece did not get stitched, that's okay. Like this piece right here is not stitched in. So in your third round, most likely it's going to get stitched in. Now, like I said, I come back and I add rows, but I stay with the theme with the Kiwandi going around. And so, you know, just to make you feel a little bit better about the raw edges, way back like 800 years ago when Kiwandi was being made by hand, so the fabric was torn. It was not cut in perfect little squares and rectangles like we're doing. So I actually want to create a Kiwandi piece like that. I want to bring you along with me on that. But now once you have the method of Kiwandi down, you can get way more artistic and creative on how you are designing it. So I am staying very conservative in my design with you. In my next project, I want to maybe just put the camera on me, not talking and whatnot. You can just watch me create, because I want to be able to share with you some of my creative process and how I do that. But so we will lay out round 3 right now, and you see how the center is getting smaller and smaller. So let's see, I'm going to start over here and go around. So now that is clockwise, and the Kiwandi tradition, they work counterclockwise. So if I worked counterclockwise and went out of my element a little bit, I'd start over here. But I'm going to stay with this because I'm showing you, so I'm going to stay in my element and start here. So we will lay out row 3. Now laying out row 3, I just want to preface this a little bit. The way you're going to figure out where to start is, first of all, you're going to focus on your spaces. You want to fill in your spaces, right? You want to overlap about 1/8 of an inch. okay? Because if you don't give yourself at least that guideline, you could start like that. And that's really not starting row 3. Row 3 is starting really over here. Now, if you feel the need to move it over because you want to hide that, you can do that, but you just don't want to go too far up. You don't want to go too far over, because then you're getting away really from your row 3. So we'll do like that. We'll start row 3 right there. So that brings us up over a little bit, and it's covering our space, and that's a nice place to begin. And then we just continue, and we're focusing on our spaces here. Now, if this falls a little bit below, that's okay. A little bit above, that's okay. And you see we have certain repetition. I actually like this piece there, to tell you the truth. And a lot of these are coming from our pink project that we did not too long ago. So I love these designs that we have, though. Look at that. So that it's time to turn already. It's time to turn. So now I have a tiny little space between this fabric and this fabric. Look, right there. So I need to, and I want to cover that. Okay. And then continue with my row. This is your little crinkle they talk about. That's okay. Actually, those two pinks together, I probably don't want to do that. I like the contrasting as we go along. Now, I almost did that. I almost went way up there. And now the reason this is way up there is this is my space. Okay, so I'm focusing on covering that. There, that's very nice. But here, I don't want to go all the way up there, because guess what? It's really here that I want to cover that. So this falls a little bit below. So when you come stitching around here like that, you're going to be grabbing your and this works out beautifully. It's, look, it's almost like a mathematical equation. It really is, because it's simplistic. It's so simplistic, though. But as long as you're focusing on covering your spaces and staying about 1/8 inch overlapping, all of this works out beautifully, because when we start our stitching around, it's going to grab those pieces of fabric in the second row that you didn't get, and it will take care of the third row. And then when you start your next row of stitching around, it takes care of anything not picked up in your third row. So it just takes care of itself, really. It's ingenious, really, beyond measure. And the more you do this, you see it. You see the absolute ingenious of this art. Now what I'm going to do is, because I have a little space here between this fabric and that fabric, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. Now, I still I turned this around because now we're continuing our third row, but we're going over here now. So, we're basically on the other side. And this is a very good example right here. This is my second row right here, and I almost covered it up because what I need to do is be mindful of using my spaces as guidelines for me to stay in my third or my next row. That's my row. So that is your guideline, is your space. Your spaces that are left. Some of our designs are starting to repeat. Let's see about this one here. Now, right here, when I just tucked that in, I noticed, okay, well, wait a minute, there's a space between. My second row is covering it up nicely, but there's still a space right here. So I really do want to focus and make sure that that is covered. So I can, so it's all about your spaces as you create your piece. So that's very nice. And this is our last piece on that side. So now we're going to turn it. Now you probably are starting to understand why I turn it row by row. You see how complicated this is getting? It looks complicated, although I have 3 rows, but we're moving into the center. So I can still count 1 row, 2 rows, and now I'm working my third row this way. That's why I do what I do. And or use that method. And your pieces can be bigger, definitely, but what you want to do is be a little bit mindful that you're staying within, you're working your third row pretty much of your third row, or your fourth row of your fourth row, overlapping, focusing on that vicinity, I should say, in that way. I really like these fabrics, and see how wonderful it is they're sewn in, so I can do that, and that piece is big enough where it's still showing, so that's good. Now that's still my third row, and I'm still working. Here's my little bunch there. And you're going to see it starts to move in the center. Now here I need to be mindful here. I need to either overlap or underlap 1/8 of an inch. So this is definitely not pulled up enough. I need to pull that up at least 1/8 of an inch. So that's good. And let's see. Okay, that's good. I'm going to actually pull it over a tiny bit. It's a little hard to see from this angle. There. Now see, I pulled it over and there's a space here. So I really do not want that space. So I'm pulling it back, making sure my 1/8 of an inch, and I'm leaving it there. That is now placed. That's fine. That's what I want. Now I need one more piece for this side. And I'm going to go with that. And I need to make sure it's an 1/8 of an inch up here at least. Very good. So now this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. We have done all 4 sides, and typically we don't count our rows, but we're counting for the sake of sharing and showing you how this goes. So I will begin sewing this. I'm going to start. Here's my needle up here. And whoop, I'm going to turn this around so you can see. Turn this around. There. This is where my needle was left. Right here. And so I'm simply going to start. Here's my 3rd row right here. But the way I'm going to do this is because my sewing needle is already threaded, I'm going to start here. And like I said, what I do, and some people will go around and put X's and different type of stitches in here. But what I do is just sometimes go around and add, like I said, another round or 2 rounds or 3 rounds, whatever it is. Now I'm going to actually pin these because guess what? They're going to come out. And then I will come back and I will share with you our 3rd row stitched in place. Okay, everyone, so we finished stitching the top part of the 3rd row. Went all the way around. So now we're ready to do the next row and actually finish designing this piece. Now, when you get to the center, do you need to have a center piece that's perfectly centered? And the answer is absolutely not. This is a handmade piece. It is done in such a humble style. You know, we're not using the tape measures. We go around. We're using scrap pieces, all different types of shapes. And you know, some people, when they do Kiwandi, it's not so pronounced that you've hit the center. Other people, it's extremely pronounced that you hit the center. So the idea is using the method working from the outside edges in. So with that, we're going to put the camera down and we will finish designing this piece. So I am going to actually turn it this way, only because for me, I'm figuring that my eye will work better here. So let's see. I think I'm going to start with this piece here. Now I can put it underneath if I want to, because see, I sewed the top parts here. Actually, this one I came around into the middle, but the idea is that you have enough room. If you do want to underlap, you certainly can, if you do it this way. So I think what I'm going to do, I kind of like the overlapping. So I'm going to leave that like that. And as I choose my pieces, I am mindfully making sure I'm overlapping. The overlapping is extremely important because when you sew, then your pieces are more secure. Definitely more secure. And yeah, these two just happen to be flush. Now I'm not doing the flush on purpose. I'm kind of using my spacing. Now here the spacing changes. Okay, it changes. So will my piece change a little bit? And I'm going to do that. I bring that down just a little bit from that one and over. Making sure I overlap this piece and overlap this piece and that piece. Let's see. Now I'm working with this space here. Now you don't have to work with the space with a piece that's exactly the shape of the space. You can work with a couple of different pieces. You can improvise. There's a lot of different ways you can work with that space. So I'm doing that, and I'm going to flip that underneath here. I like that. And then you see I have this little space right here. So that's important that I cover that. And I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm putting this piece there. And yes, I have my stitches. So maybe, do I need to have it that far up? No, I do not. This is a good reminder we're only worried about 1/8 of an inch on either side of that space. So this can actually come down, and look how beautiful that is. And it saved me from putting it on top of stitches that I already did and sewing over that again. So paying attention to my spacing and exactly what I need. Now I can bring this down here. That's okay. We're working towards the middle. So this is a very pretty piece. We have not used this one. And again, here's my space I'm working with. There's a little bulge there. That's to be expected. So we're not going to let that bother us. So I work with this space. I want to cover the immediate spaces here and stay with my row, the rhythm of my row. So this one I'm going to bring it underneath. Then I see I have this. Now I'm going to turn this around. Even though it's not a lot of space here, I want to put it on the other side for me to keep my rhythm, so to speak, going. So now what we're focusing on, we have this tiny little space. Now I can either choose another piece of fabric, a different piece of fabric that will come all the way over, or just pick a smaller piece of fabric and put it on there. So I think I'm going to go with the smaller piece. And I've got this one, so I'm going to go with this piece and put it underneath. So I like that. Now I'm going across. And when you get to this point, seriously, you can improvise a little bit if you want, improvise. I mean, yes, you want to keep closing it in with the Kiwandi method. However, if you want to get creative at this point, you certainly can, right? So, but I'm staying with my 1/8 of an inch here. focusing on coming in. That's what I want to do. And my pieces are dwindling a little bit on me over here. Now, I love this purple. That just seems to really keep working. Now, if I put that all the way over, it's covering that piece. I don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do with that, actually, I'm going to trim this. No, I don't even have to trim it. I think I have a different piece. Yeah, this will work. So we're gonna work with this piece. That's perfect. I really like that. Okay, now we're coming down this way. So I'm turning this so you can keep following. And this is why I turn it, because I really do want to keep track. If I'm closing into the center and I'm serious about that, I want to keep track of that. And you can lose track of it, and you can see how quite easily here. This piece is almost covered, really. Almost. I think what I might do here, see if I can get that one underneath there, and I can. I can tuck it under there beautifully, and that's really what I want to do with that. Now, actually, I don't want to do that. So you got to test these out and see how they look. Okay. Staying with my 1/8 of an inch. That covers this beautifully, but then we get more space here. So I'm just focusing on these spaces that I can cover. So I'm going to put that like that, and I'm turning again. And now I'm focusing on my space here. Now this is a beautiful piece. This could actually go, well, I'm going to put it under there actually. And it covers nicely my 1/8 of an inch about. It's on an angle here, but it still covers beautifully there. So this piece, this is the anchors. Now I'm towards the center, and I really, really like bright colors. So I'm going to see if I can play with this piece. Put it here. It's not going to be perfectly centered, but it's going to be a nice part of this project. Now look, I have this left here. This piece is not big enough, but we still have this piece. No need to turn right at this point. So we've got the fan blowing. We have some humidity going on here today, there's no doubt. Okay, so this piece now, and I will go with a more subtle color. Oh, that subtle color, look, it's right there too. Now I can leave it, but I don't want to. I will choose something else. I will choose this one actually. And I'm going to put that right there. I think that's lovely. You notice I'm not playing and fussing with the batting. I will simply sew it where it's at. And I will sew these into their places. And we will come back and look at the finished piece. Okay, everyone, guess what? It's a day later. So, I work this, not continuously, but I put a lot of hours in working it. And let me hold it close up so you can see the center. Center is a very slight bulge. Like, it's not even noticeable. It just blends in with the whole artistry of the piece. Now, if you wanted to, use the back to give you guidance. Now, I can come back. I probably will even fill in this and go around there. But you can use the back as a indicator for you if there's more areas you just want to secure and you kind of want to stay with your going around in your rectangle or your square. Now, yes, I knotted these on the outside because I'm going to put a backing on it. Now, some people use the backing like this as a design. And so what you would do is, as I was saying earlier in the clips, is you can tuck your knotting in between your fabrics so that doesn't show. So, but anyway, this I think came out beautifully. It's beautifully secure. It looks lovely. And if you hold it back, the beauty of this piece, you can see, here's row 1. You can see the rows. You can see it. You can see it working towards the center. So, and as you use more pronounced, designs and colors to even emphasize that going from the outside in, how beautiful is that? So we'll do that. There's a lot of things I have on my little list to do in my mind that I'm seeing that I want to do to share with you. And if you do this, please share with us. I would love to hear from you that you were inspired and you're doing some of this. Or you started your journey. So anyway, I hope that this inspired you greatly to get your scraps out and start working your Kiwandi. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer for the methods that I use and the way that I work. So you have a beautiful, beautiful day.